Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Ageless Athlete. This is your host, Kush Khandelwal, bringing you another amazing episode this week where we are staying right here in California and we are in Tahoe meeting with a climber I have long admired, Heidi Wirtz. Heidi's energy, confidence, and sheer skill that I witnessed in a climbing video over a decade ago had me captivated. Often dubbed Heidi Almighty, she is a force in the climbing scene, known for her bold and technical abilities across all terrain, rock, ice, alpine, and with over 26 years of climbing, she has pioneered new routes on big walls and mountains around the world, from Yosemite to Nepal, and has a reputation for speed ascents in Yosemite that has driven Heidi to such heights, literally and figuratively. We'll dive into a journey, her passion for mental and physical resilience, and how she balances her climbing lifestyle along with her being an entrepreneur. So, hey, if you're new to the Ageless Athlete podcast, be sure to check out some of our past episodes where we have featured some other incredible athletes who continue to defy age and barriers. Let's roll.
Well, I am in Strawberry, so right across the street from Lover's Leap in California. And I had yogurt, fruit, and pecans for breakfast this morning with tea.
That sounds like a tasty breakfast. Enjoyed in the beautiful back shadow of Lover's Leap. It's been a while since I've been out there. I'm trying to remember the last time I was at the Leap. It might have been a couple of years ago. I think it was after the fires, but I don't think I've made it there recently. And I remember also being at Strawberry myself, actually being at the lodge a couple of years ago, and I think watched maybe like a football game and had dinner there.
Oh wow! Okay, at the lodge itself.
Yeah, they have a little bar there, right? You can buy climbing guidebooks, and you can also have a meal and a drink after the end of your climbing day.
Yeah, well, the lodge is closed right now, unfortunately, but the Strawberry Station is still open, and that's the hang now. Everybody goes to the Strawberry Station after climbing, and Squirrel, the owner, he does a barbecue night every Saturday night, and it's a really fun. It's fun there. Good community for sure.
I had no idea that was happening right, I think across the road maybe, or very close to the old lodge.
Yeah, exactly. It's right across the street. Yeah.
What brings you to Strawberry today?
Well, I've been working here actually for the last, I guess it's been like a month that I've been here, and I have a couple more weeks. I'm teaching single pitch instructor courses and guiding privately and climbing. So whenever I can. Yeah.
Sounds fun. And, this is the right season to be out there. And I've seen some of your marketing around the courses. The courses look great. But Heidi, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Okay. Who am I? That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out sometimes. I'm Heidi Wirtz. I am a professional climber, guide full time. And what do I do? I run adventure yoga retreats, earth play retreats is my business. And I take people around the world. We go to amazing places, basically places that I want to go. And we go climbing and do yoga, and some of the trips have slacklining and acro yoga and surfing. But yeah, mostly I guide a lot and rock climb all the time.
Sounds like you have crafted a dream lifestyle in some ways. You get to take people to places where you want to go. I mean, nothing sounds better than that. But to start off with, you've had a long and storied climbing career, and you've done a lot of things over the years. But just to introduce people to how your journey began into the world of outdoor adventures, can you share a little bit about what sparked that interest?
Well, my family was pretty active actually growing up. I started skiing when I could walk, basically. So yeah, my dad, he taught ski lessons and chaperoned on a bus that would go up to the ski area we lived in Sacramento. So we got to go ski at Boreal ski area quite a lot when I was a kid, and then eventually started going to the other areas like Alpine Meadows and Squaw Valley, which is now called Paradise, I guess. But yeah, I started hiking and doing all kinds of fun outdoor stuff with my family when I was really young. So I was pretty lucky.
Sacramento gets really hot in the summertime, but it is also right next to the gorgeous Sierras. And I'm guessing, yeah, you are in Lover's Leap today, which is likely an area or part of the state that you know really well, having been exposed to the mountains there initially with skiing. How did you start climbing, though?
Well, that is a good question. I mean, essentially, I was into backpacking and scrambling up mountains. Yeah, we would go up technical peaks, essentially, just soloing, scrambling up the descent routes a lot of times, and eventually started doing harder and harder stuff and decided that we needed to start learning how to actually do it. So we bought a rope and a rack and read Freedom of the Hills and did it that way. So learned kind of was definitely old school style.
Very cool. Was it your family that was holding your hand and taking you up some of these beautiful peaks, or was it like your little crew of friends who would escape on the weekends?
Yeah, it was essentially a little crew of friends. There was basically 3 of us, and we would go out, hiking and scrambling pretty much as we could. We hiked, with one of my friends, we hiked the John Muir Trail and scrambled up as many peaks as we could, which turned into I don't even know how many peaks we went up on that trip. But yeah, every hike we would do, which was what our summers entailed, was just hiking. Would be basically climbing and hiking missions, really. And we didn't, during that time, we definitely scrambled and climbed a lot, but then eventually I ran into a friend let's see, how did that story go exactly? I was climbing in Crested Butte. Sorry, I'm kind of tired. This has been a really long week. I just got done teaching an SBI course just yesterday and climbed into the evening last night. So this might be an interesting interview for you. I should have maybe drank more caffeine tonight too. But essentially it was the scrambling and the hiking, but then eventually I was taken under the wing of a guy named Joe Malley, who was this kind of old dad climber guy from Crested Butte where I was living at the time, because I ended up basically dropping out of college and jumping into somebody's hatchback and ended up, because I was following the Grateful Dead at the time. But I dropped out to go to Europe on the Dead European tour, and then that didn't actually work out because I got a little nervous because my friend dropped out of that trip. So, but I still ended up in somebody's hatchback, and they drove me to Colorado, and I jumped out and in basically Gunnison, Colorado, and went up to Crested Butte and decided to pack my bags and move there. And pretty soon I started climbing on my own there a little bit, like with that group of friends that I was talking about, scrambling up peaks and whatnot. And then we bought a rack and a rope, and I took my first lead whipper because I would climb whatever, and I didn't know what they were rated, and I shouldn't have probably been climbing some of the things. And I was climbing a big chimney wide crack thing, and I was bear hugging the outside of it instead of climbing inside of it like you would do if you were, a good climber or in the know of climbing it all. You get into the big cracks instead of hugging the outside of them. And I fell off and scraped all the skin off the inside of my arm and was kind of a little mangled. And I ran into somebody after that, and he was like, "Whoa, the leader never falls." And he took me under his wing and basically taught me how to do it in a proper way. And introduced me to ice climbing, which I really liked. Ice climbing. That was actually one of my, I would say ice climbing was more intriguing to me than even rock climbing was when I first tried that.
Sure. You grew up in Sacramento, and I live next door to you in San Francisco, and it's gym central. We have so many climbing gyms all over. I learned how to climb, or I should say my exposure in some ways was similar to yours. I grew up in India, and my family would take us in the summers camping and backpacking in the mountains. And that's kind of gave that early spark. But having moved here now, it is funny when I tell people that I first climbed outside, they are so shocked because most people, even the really good climbers here, have come out of the gyms. So it's a very different style of introduction to the mountains than perhaps we had, even just maybe, for me, maybe 2 decades ago, for you, maybe a little bit before that. You were bear hugging the outside of this crack. First, I don't know how you bear hug the outside of a crack. I know I've tried to open doors, which is or laid back like silly. But anyway, sounds like you managed to get yourself up some fun, maybe hairy adventures, and you found yourself a mentor, and now you are providing, let's say, more formal mentorship to aspiring climbers today, but still sticking with your introduction to climbing. And you made a name for yourself over the last few decades for doing some pretty badass stuff all over the world, really. I want to hear from you. What are maybe a couple of climbing accomplishments that you are yourself the most proud of?
Well, I mean, basically just psyched that I'm still doing it. I'm pretty proud of that. But I'm alive. I have a lot of friends that have died actually in the last, bunch of years in the climbing world. But yeah, so I'm pretty stoked that I'm still here doing it. But yeah, climbing. Eventually in my climbing career, I started climbing with women more, because if I was climbing with a male partner and I did something that I thought was noteworthy, it would get dismissed. I wouldn't get any credit for it. Not that, you want credit for the stuff you do, right? Most humans do. We want to be seen and heard and all that stuff. and I would climb something with a male partner, and then say it was in Yosemite, I'd come into the cafeteria and everybody would ask the guy like, "Oh man, how did it go?" And woo, congratulations. And they would never even look at me. And I'm like, what the heck? So I started climbing with women more. And so some of my proudest accomplishments, I would say, were some of the first ascents that I did with other women, like Bad Hair Day and the Bugaboos with Lizzie Scully. I'm pretty proud of that one because we went into this remote tower essentially that other people had been trying to free climb. It had been climbed before, but we wanted to climb it without pulling on equipment. We wanted to just use our hands and feet and climb up the thing free climb style. And we did. We just walked in, picked a route and did it. And it felt really good because, yeah, we got full credit for it because it was a couple of girls doing it. And we got to tell the boys like, hey, we just did the project that y'all were working on. So it was pretty cool, actually.
I didn't realize that was a conscious move on y'all's part, but I mean, it totally makes sense that. And yeah, it is. I see that even in like in my world of, let's say, more everyday recreation climbing, where people will often walk up to the guy in a duo climbing group and ask the guy for beta or whatnot, and then ignore their perhaps their female identified partner next to them who probably put the drawers up. But at least when it comes to local crags, at least in California, and maybe in even some other places, like I was in Wyoming a month ago, at least the representation for at single pitch crags in the mountains could be different. I think that has definitely changed. So I can't see how today somebody would go to a crag where maybe 70% of the climbers are females, and then like try to seek out that one lone dude who's. But anyway, I digress. Heidi, one of the things that I wanted to ask you when I first was reaching out to you was many years ago. I saw this climbing video of you, and I think you were doing a somewhat hard line in Colorado. I think it was called the Wasp. I think it was in one of the climbing tricks from like a couple of decades ago, and I was immediately struck at with your infectious energy and your ability to manage scary runouts and big falls with ease and and smile and giggle through the process. So I'm curious, where do you get this really positive attitude? And then is that one of your secrets on having had all the success and also this longevity in the sport that you just spoke of?
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24/7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode.
Well, I'm glad that I come across as positive. That's nice. I've been told that by my students too. I think honestly, I'm just pretty blessed in general, and I have a lot of gratitude for my life. So I think if you feel grateful and lucky and appreciative that it just makes you a more positive human. I've also done tons of yoga over the years, so maybe that helped. but yeah, I'm just psyched. I've always had a lot of energy, so I'm a lucky person, I think.
Sure. And do you think that energy has helped you also surmount some of these tragedies that you have seen around you and that have affected you? Like you mentioned, losing part of the climbing community over the years. Is that something that you also value because that's helped you perhaps continue to push yourself in the sport?
Yeah, it's interesting because when one of the first tragedies happened in my life was I was pretty young, and one of my climbing partners died up in Canada in an avalanche, and I kind of ignored it, to be honest. I don't think I really dealt with it well, so I don't know if my positive attitude was helping with that situation. I mean, since then I definitely process it a little bit. I feel like I go a little more into it in a conscious way and process some of these situations. But you do in climbing have to almost kind of shut yourself off to it a little bit, or else you might stop, which is sad. Because I was pushing myself at a high level back then when that person passed away. And I had so much psych inside of me to just see, what places I could go to and what adventures I could go on and how hard I could climb and all these things. And if I really looked at the death side of it all, like we can die doing this stuff. I feel like that could have stopped me a bit more. So I don't know if it played out in the way that you're thinking, as far as like my positive energy made me able to deal with it. I think my positive energy made me able to compartmentalize it into it. Yeah. Because I was still just really psyched on what I was doing, but I don't know if it was completely healthy.
I did not expect that response, but I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the response where, yes, your positive outlook could have maybe at that point stopped you from processing the scenario more deeply on the subject of risk and being able to balance. So the first thing I would like to ask you, so, you have all of these, I don't know, epic ascents all over the place, Heidi. To the outside person, it might seem that, Heidi sets her mind to an objective and then she doesn't stop until she goes and accomplishes it. But have there been some calculated decisions where you have actually stopped yourself, where you felt like, what, I'm at some place in the Karakorums or somewhere else, and this is not as stoked as I might feel in the classic Heidi way. I need to not do this.
Yeah, I have actually. I call it listening to my intuition, and I mean sometimes it's been more than just intuition where I've had to stop myself, but at times I have stopped myself where I had just not a good feeling about it, and I don't know what would have happened if I had carried on necessarily, but I'm still here. So it's hard though, especially if you're doing it professionally. For a while I was working for a bunch of different companies and going on expeditions and getting the trips paid for, and we had photographers and all this stuff, and you're like, do I listen to myself and not do the objective, but these guys really want me to do it, they want me to have some success. So it's an interesting line, and it's harder to step away from things when you have other influences on top of it, right? That's how a couple of my friends actually died. I think they had a National Geographic team with them, and they felt like they had to do the objective. which makes me irritated because I'm like, would I have done that? And I would hope not, because I have listened to my intuition and not always pleased people in that way. But it's an interesting world to be in, like where people are pushing you and you don't always get to listen to yourself. So I think it's important. I think it's important though to listen to yourself.
Yeah. To the casual observer, it might seem like maybe what I was facetiously commenting earlier, that hey, in one way, what could seem like a dream lifestyle, one gets paid to go play in the mountains.
Yeah,
seems amazing. But sometimes I feel blessed of having my little rookie or amateur status, where I'm only accountable to myself, and I just have my own fragile ego to manage rather than sponsors and maybe a career on the line. Heidi, you have somehow gotten this nickname, Heidi Almighty. What is the story of that?
Well, who named me that? I feel like my friend Coiler named me that. Everybody had a nickname back in the day in Yosemite. So it came from Yosemite. And I guess it rhymed, but he came up with it. Like, I don't know exactly how that came about, but I was climbing lots of big things. And at the time I was super strong. Probably one of the strongest women in Yosemite at the time. And so, yeah, that's the name that he came up with for me. And it at first I was like, no, you can't do this. But then it stuck and it kept following me around, which is kind of funny. I wonder if he's proud of that.
It's a good one. And glad you brought up Yosemite. I live next to Yosemite, and privy to some of the evolution of the climbing culture that has in the last few years dazzled the larger world out there. You were doing epic things back when one did not hear so much about female climbers pushing themselves. I'm sure they were out there, but somehow, at least what popular media would tell us, they were not that many. You hear about, these stone monkeys following the stone masters. How was it being a female in that world, Heidi? What years were those, first of all? And then how did you find yourself in Yosemite, and how did you end up making a name for yourself there?
I'm pretty bad with dates, but I think the first time I went to Yosemite, it was in the early 90s. So I think around 93 was my first trip to Yosemite. And obviously I was kind of a beginner back then with climbing in general, because I started climbing in 91. But so it wasn't really until probably the mid to late 90s that I really started going there all the time. And it was interesting that's where I decided that I needed to start climbing with women, was because I would climb there in general. And, you'd go up on Half Dome trying to free it, and nobody would recognize that I was up there. It was just the guy that I was with. So I felt like I was pretty dismissed, but maybe not, because they did come up with that name for me. So maybe that's why I pushed it so much, is because I felt like I always had something to prove. I had to keep up with the boys. So, it was interesting.
When you partner up with women, and you've done that consciously, talk to us a little bit about how the experience also differs. I can see that it is different from how the expedition or the climb is viewed by the media. But how is your day-to-day experience when it comes to planning for the climb, taking the climb on? If you take something like doing an ascent in, I don't know, and LCAP, for example, right? There's a way you plan for the route, stuff you're gonna take, how you're gonna uh, uh, plan for who does what pitch, whether you're doing like a fast ascent or you like all of those things come into play. Like, how does that change when you're doing something with another female?
It's for the most part pretty similar. I would say one of the biggest differences between I wouldn't say it's necessarily while you're planning, because you still have to bring the same stuff and all that really to do a similar objective with a man or a woman. But I would say when I'm out on a trip with a woman versus a man, most women will communicate differently than with men. So like if a man's lost, they're not gonna own up to that. I mean, maybe not all the guys, but I had that happen many times on trips where the guy would just be going the wrong way and you're like, hey, do you think we're lost? And they're like, no. And they're just carrying on, and like, and women, we stop and go, yeah, maybe, I don't know. What do you think? And we have a conversation about it. And I feel like that kind of ran through my climbing career with men, where they wouldn't even want to talk to me about that kind of thing. And then they would get kind of upset with me if I brought up that I thought that maybe we were going the wrong way. And it wasn't like their fault, but they'd be like, what, are you doubting me? And you're like, no, aren't we a team? Like, this is, like, it was fascinating. Like I had guys.
This is classic.
I had men straight up not listen to me on trips, and they would end up going the wrong way, and I would go a different way, and I'd get to, back to town hours before them, and they were just like, how did you do that? I'm like, whatever, you guys, it's fine. Because
this is like the big wall equivalent of stopping for directions, pre GPS, when as guys would be fine, guys would keep making the wrong turns and not listen to their partners. Actually, it's another perspective I have of climbing with women, which I kind of cherish, is I've learned from my female climbing partners that it is okay sometimes to admit that I'm scared and that I want to back off and not do something. And I find that it's a skill that I'm kind of become proud of, where I will say that. And then I find that if I'm climbing with a guy, initially they will be kind of surprised that I would say something like that. They won't expect it, but then they would also appreciate and also start becoming a little bit more vulnerable with me. So yeah, it is great. It is great that when one has opportunity to climb with people of, let's say, all genders, but then sometimes of different cultures and backgrounds as well, and maybe just be able to cherry pick lessons and take them to. I'm jumping around a little bit because we only have so much time, and there's so much I want to ask you, Heidi. Cannot keep you all day. One other thing I wanted to understand is you are obviously a very self-aware person, I can sense, and you have been up close and personal with all these beautiful cultures around the world, from places such as Pakistan and Canada, and all over, like, and even now with your company. Anyway, those cultures in many ways have a remarkably different way of living and outlook than we do. Curious, what have these travels taught you about yourself, and maybe also changed you as a human?
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
Oh man. I mean, the first time I went to Nepal, I thought, wow, I need to be a better human. I mean, the people there are so kind. They just go out of their way to do things for you where you're like, nobody in the US would ever do that, um, and
Example?
like the one of the bigger climbs that I did there, we did a ice climb. It was like this 2,500 foot ice climb called Losar out of Namche. And you have to hike down about 1,000 feet and up 1,000 feet to get to the base of it. And then it's this huge thing, right? So we climb this thing and come down, and we do our last rappel. And there's two Nepali guys at the base. They had brought us tea and food, and they're like, "Let us carry your packs back." And I was like, "Wait, what? This is just insane. Like, why would you do this?" No, they were just so psyched for us that they thought they should bring us tea and carry our packs out. It was crazy. I mean, I don't know. I was just like, wow, that's kind of unheard of, really.
That's great.
And I don't know. Yeah, it just sometimes the lack of what they have too, but yet they're just how psyched they are on life. It makes me realize that I don't need as much, right? So, like in India is a good example. When you're in the mountains, like in the Himachal Pradesh, we'd be in some tiny little village where they have nothing, right? But they're so psyched. And their whole family's together, and they're just that's another thing, is like they stay with their families in India. I mean, I met people over there that I would tell them, "Oh, I live, thousands of miles away from my family most of the time." And they're like, "How do you survive?" And it's just, yeah, it kind of makes me sad, honestly, how we are in the US, how we're so unattached, or so unfamily oriented, so it makes me kind of sad. But yeah, I think just being grateful for the little things and learning that we don't need as much to be happy, because it's not the stuff that makes you happy. It's the people that are around you, like your family and your friends. And so, yeah, I mean, it really does teach you a lot traveling to these places.
And then as a consequence, perhaps, Heidi, when you go out with your partners these days, are you offering to carry their packs end of the day and making them, making them chai and giving them like cookies?
That's pretty funny. I make them carry everything, actually, because my knees are bad now. No, I'm just kidding.
No, so no. In all seriousness, yeah. So the second part of what I want to ask is, like, obviously, yes, there are many things in those cultures that perhaps we could stand to learn from. How has that maybe changed your outlook, though? Like, are you doing things differently in your day-to-day life as part of?
Oh yeah, I mean, I try and tell my friends all the time how much they mean to me, and really surround myself with the people that I love, and visit my family a lot more. Yeah, I definitely try and prioritize those things for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And hey, you're climbing not too far from Tahoe, so maybe you found a way to strategically be closer to, if your family's still in Sacramento, that is.
Yeah, my mom's up in Humboldt now, but I go see her once a month now. So whenever I'm not working, I try and get up there. It's been pretty nice, actually, to be close.
Wanted to speak to you a little bit about inclusion and representation in outdoor sports.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, think we have come some way forward from even a couple of decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
However, there do seem to still be opportunities for more equality and representation. In your perspective, what are some of those big opportunities out there for the industry
Mm-hmm.
and the world at large to bring forward or reduce the inequality in the outdoor world?
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm always talking about this actually in the guiding world because there are more and more women guiding nowadays and going through the program. This is just like one aspect. It's hard for me to generalize with the entire outdoor industry, but yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of funding going into trying to get minorities into these realms, like into maybe guiding, but they only really are helping to fund people on such a basic level. And I'm just thinking of the guiding world right now. It's like there's funding to get your foot in the door so that they can say, wow, we got all these people into it. But then what about continuing their mentorship onward so that they can actually become a fully certified guide? Because we do need more diversity in the guiding world. So I'm just going to use that one because I'm really familiar with it and I'm in it. Because it kind of bugs me that there's like this entry, but then you just stuck your foot in the door and then they're like, okay, that's it. That's all we got. So I just think there's so much opportunity.
Are you speaking about are you speaking about guiding world, let's say more in the US
Mm-hmm.
or overseas, or is this like your I don't know, your broad outlook?
Well,
Because the guiding in Nepal, for example, is probably like funding, guiding,
mm-hmm.
training in Nepal is
Mm-hmm.
probably, I don't know, to me seems quite different than the same thing happening in
Mm-hmm.
in Yosemite or Colorado.
Yeah, I'm thinking more in the US.
Okay.
And I'm sure in European countries there needs to be more thought process into this as well. But in the US, that's basically where I function, and just the lack there in the higher realms of the, as far as you can be an aspirant guide and just like kind of start trying it, but there isn't a whole lot of help out there for people to continue on yet. And I just think I feel like that's a great way for people to find a career in the outdoor industry is through that. And so I just think it would be nicer to have more mentorship that leads you to higher education in that realm.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together: training, aging, mindset, and awe. You will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show. Do you think some of this might be that initially these outdoor companies will earmark funding because it honestly may look good for their numbers
Mm-hmm.
and their let's say their DEI initiatives.
Yeah.
But then once that box is checked off, then there is lesser incentive for them to continue investing in those people.
That's what it feels like to me. I mean, from what I've seen, it's still predominantly run by And I mean, sorry, all you white guys out there, but it still feels like it's predominantly run by white guys. That in general. And then a lot of the industry feels like it's a lot of white guys running stuff to me. And I would just like to see more diversity in those higher up places, you know, like even if it's, like running the companies or, you know, and it's starting to happen, but yeah, in the guiding world in general, it feels like there's a lot of room for it. And so I feel like if it's in that world, it's got to be everywhere that there is a lot of room for growth in that. Right?
Sure. And in some ways, to me, it seems that that is a good place to focus, because if you mentor the right set of people, then it automatically, like, you know, that's kind of the base of the pyramid. If you do that correctly, then other things on top of that hopefully follow suit.
Yeah.
Heidi, you have taken your career as a climber and have gone on to build a business around. So you are an entrepreneur, and would love to talk about the journey of what you do with Earth Play retreats. But still on the subject of representation and opportunity, as a woman who's been in the industry for many years, what advice would you give to, let's say, other female athletes or entrepreneurs looking to make their mark in the outdoor world today?
Oh my! I mean, don't give up, I guess. Don't get discouraged, because there will be some hurdles to jump over, for sure. Yeah, we need more women out there and more just minorities in general. So yeah.
Are there any role models, for example, that you can point to, and you can be like, you know what, this person is doing it well?
That's a good question. You know, I can't answer that right this second, actually. But I mean,
okay,
like, you know, I want to be like, oh, Lynn Hill has always been like a role model to me. She's not necessarily like she is an entrepreneur as well. I mean, she created like her videos and is doing all that. And I feel like she's had a lot of obstacles that she's had to deal with. So I would say, you know, she is for sure. And there's a lot of these women that were in that generation that I feel like are really quite inspirational, like Robin Eversfield. I mean, she still is training kids to be amazing athletes. And she's still a really good climber too. So, I mean, there's a lot of women out there that are pretty inspiring to me in that world.
Great. I'm throwing all these hard questions at you this Monday afternoon after some like long days of guiding over the last few days.
Yeah, it's been intense.
What did you think? This is going to be like an easy coffee chat?
Yeah, I thought this, and I heard it's going to hang out and chat. But now I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah, I literally just thought this really, it was an intense course, because they're just long days. Yeah.
And this is perfect, because I did want to ask you, what kind of work are you doing these days? I know about Earth Play retreats, and I also hear about some of the guiding that you're doing, teaching people, you know, important skills in the mountains. Tell us a bit more.
Well, yeah. So I'm running Earth Play retreats. I have trips going all throughout the year, that's my dream, was to do this, to take people to beautiful places and help inspire them to not just get into climbing, but travel and yoga and connecting all of it together. But my guiding, I would say a lot of my clients are females, actually, which is not, it seems like, of course they are. But But yeah, I'm running lots of single pitch instructor courses now. So teaching people that want to become instructors in the climbing world, which has been really, really fun actually. And I really enjoy sharing that with people and keeping it a fun learning environment for people and like feeling like a safe space. I've been getting a lot of feedback that feels really good about that.
It seems like maybe there are these two slightly different initiatives. So you have your Earth Play retreats, and you have, it sounds like these, I don't know, beautiful package climbing retreats to these dream places, Cuba and Columbus, high on. And then you have these guiding courses, and these are slightly more advanced for people who are looking to get more advanced skills to be able to be safe and competent when doing like trad climbing and whatnot. Is that somehow correct? This I don't know, this the way I define perhaps these types of courses that you do?
Yeah, well, the single pitch instructor courses, those are through the AMGA, and they are they're specific for people that want to learn it's a specific set of skills that we're teaching them, like a set curriculum. And people take it that want to be instructors, so they might take groups of kids out, work at schools. It's hard to say what exactly they're going to do with it. And then some people take it, like you were saying, just to improve their competence in the trad world, because there's a lot of rescue components and just skills based. It's basically, it's not a whole lot of climbing on these courses. It's all technical skills. So
I learned trad climbing like in some of the worst ways possible, where not only did I not somehow find a good mentor, I also didn't find a good course. So I think I made basically all the mistakes one can make and survived, which also makes me very grateful and in somehow like rugged, because I can see many things that can go wrong. Have you seen in your let me see how I can best phrase this question. Seems like the kind of courses you're providing with some of these, do you think they are like helping replace maybe some of the mentorship that used to be sought after and provided maybe just recently? Like you had a mentor you spoke about, but these days, as we all know, people do this whole gym to crag. They learn how to get pretty good at the gym, and then they go outside and then they somehow survive and whatnot. So it's not like there's a service element to what you're doing, which is like, I don't even know how one goes about finding a mentor these days unless one is really spending a lot of time outside and meeting people naturally. So is that perhaps one desired outcome is, hey, let's teach you climbing the right way and keep you safe and keep you alive?
I mean, definitely in my guiding, that's what I strive for, is to, teach people all the skills to make it as safe as possible. Climbing's not safe. It's inherently dangerous, but to minimize the risk, that's definitely one of my main goals, and to go have a lot of fun too. Because being outside is awesome. And I feel like, honestly, like getting people outside in any way that you can is good for the human race in general. Because the more people that you can get psyched on the outdoors, the more they're going to care about the outdoors and want to take care of it. And we got to take care of this place because it's amazing. For our next generations coming. So I just think it's a win-win to get more people psyched on it. And I love it.
I could not agree more. I do feel that some people complain about too many cars and visitors in Yosemite and Yellowstone and all the national parks. And I'm like, yes, that is a problem. But if you manage it well, then you can allow people to recreate somewhat responsibly. But more importantly, the more people go outside and experience the wonder and beauty of Mother Nature, the more they're likely to vote for protecting the world we live in. So
exactly. Yeah. Cause how can you not just fall in love with it? I think that's just, yeah. I love nature.
I think, I think many of us, maybe most of us, don't have the privilege of being exposed to the outdoors. Your parents took you outside, mine did, and many other people. We both know they got lucky, but many people don't have that. They grew up playing, I don't know, video games or things like that. And if you never experience the, I don't know, not to get really cheesy, but like the dirt below your feet and the open skies and whatnot, like you will not really care as much for that.
Yeah, it's true. So it's how do we get more people out there? And yeah, the crowds can be kind of a bummer, but you're right. If it's managed well, we just have to realize that we need to make this happen for people so they can realize how awesome it is. So they'll want to take care of this place too.
One specific question I just thought about when it comes to learning some of these skills to stay safe with being outside in the big mountains. When it comes to, when things go well, with, let's say, with drag climbing, alpine climbing, things go well, you have a rad adventure, right? The worst is maybe you come home dehydrated and tired. But then things can go much worse, right? Like you could be stuck somewhere without, maybe your partner cannot finish the pitch. Maybe there's a storm that happens, something else happens. And I'm guessing you cover some of those scenarios and like your self-rescue class, for example, right? Now, I took a self-rescue class a long time ago. And I am positive I could not do any of those things I learned in that class. So what advice do you have for people who, like myself, who can handle ourselves fairly competently when things are going well, but are not doing these things on a day-to-day basis to keep those more obscure skills fresh? How do we make sure to be able to manage some of these more scary scenarios that can happen?
Well, I mean, training is super important. But if you get the training, you have to keep practicing, right?
So do you think people are doing that? Do you think people go back and take a course and every month, they go to, I don't know, some wall and like go through all the self-rescue techniques?
No. No, but I think you should if you want to keep it, right? I mean, otherwise you're not going to, like you said, you took one, but you're not going to remember how to do it if it happened. But you might remember some of it. It might be in there backlogged. But the best way to do it is just to find a group of friends that wants to learn, and then you can teach them. And then if you teach somebody, it'll get more ingrained into you.
Yeah.
That's the best.
No, I think that's good advice.
That's the best way. Because if you took somebody out and you were like, hey, okay, I've taken this class and I'm going to try and remember some of it and show you how to do a few things, you're going to learn a bunch. Even if you mess it up, you're still going to learn a bunch. And you could like get a book out, and it's fun to teach people. I think that's the best way to learn, honestly.
Yeah, no, that is true.
Yeah.
And you're right. I'm probably ignorant, but they are likely many people out there in the community and who are offering their services to be able to go out and learn and practice things in a community setting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Actually, before we move on, tell us, Heidi, how do we find more information about the courses that you teach? And how does one sign up? And what does one have to do to be like, I don't know, eligible for coming to play with Heidi and team?
Well, you can find more information on my website at earthplayretreats.com. It shows both my retreats and my SPI courses on there. So those are all on there. And you can also contact me directly to ask about private guiding or mentorship. And to come play with me, you don't need a whole lot of experience to come on any of the trips that I run. They're open to all levels, most of them, except for my Indian Creek one. It's nice to have some experience going into that one. But a lot of the trips, like Cuba, is all levels. It's more of a cultural experience, and we go climbing. But we do get people that are full-on climbers going on that trip too. But I mean, we dance, we hang out with locals. It's a lot of our trips are just amazing. For the SPI, you have to have a certain set of skills, which it's listed on the website. Yeah.
Your trips sound amazing, and the locations, yeah, they are dream places. I actually learned how I was exposed and then learned how to salsa dance after a climbing trip to Vinales like a dozen years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever need to add to your offering and you need a somewhat bilingual salsa teaching, salsa dancing, climbing helper,
Nice
person, I will raise my hand.
You're the one. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Super. Moving on, Heidi, I wanted to ask a little bit about being ageless. You have been pushing yourself for many decades now, and we already spoke of some of the things you have done intentionally to stay safe, to meet the right climbing partners, to keep your skills fresh. One of the things that I know you have been, let's say, ardently practicing is Ashtanga yoga, right? And actually funny, when I was looking you up over the weekend, I noticed you had this really cool video of helping climbers with posture or back problems, and you had this great little clip on using your climbing helmet.
Oh yeah,
to do like a yoga pose to stretch your back out, which I thought was great. But tell us, how has broadly your training routine evolved to continue your performance? What do you do today to keep yourself in shape? I mean, besides just climbing prodigious amounts and whatnot, like how are you able to sustain that?
Well, I wake up and do physical therapy and yoga every morning. So I have to maintain. I can't just, it's interesting. I got to a point where I was like, wow, you have to do PT every day.
What do you need PT for? I mean, I'm doing PT also. Any specific things you're having to work through?
Well, right now I almost got hip surgery when was that, last winter? It was like, a year ago or a year and a half ago. And I mean, I was 3 days out from surgery. I was supposed to get a full hip replacement. And I talked to one more doctor, and he said I wouldn't do it because he's a mountaineer and does all ice climbing and all the things that I do. And he's like, I wouldn't do it if I was you, because you looked at my MRI. And then I met, he's basically like the strength coach, PT guy for the Detroit Pistons. And he looked at my MRI and was like, yeah, we can fix this with PT. So he's been working with me, and now I can do most of the things that I want to do on my hip, and I haven't gotten surgery yet. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
From being advised to need a hip replacement, you have been able to completely avoid hip surgery?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, maybe I'll have to get it someday, but it's pretty impressive how far I've gotten. Yeah.
This is, this hits me, this affects me personally because it's funny. I just got diagnosed with hip dysplasia.
Oh, okay.
So my hips have been clicking in weird ways.
Right.
So apparently I have hip dysplasia, which is, it was like flummoxing. I'm like, you know what? I thought when you're active and you're not overweight, I mean, I'm doing some of the right things. And I'm told that I'm looking at a hip replacement somewhere down the line. But the fact that, you have learned some things effectively to help, knock on wood, heal yourself is encouraging.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we're pretty powerful creatures on the healing front if we learn the proper ways to do it. I think we can heal ourselves in a lot of ways. So
yeah, you're doing yoga,
mhm.
you're doing physical therapy,
Mhm.
and anything else that you're doing to again be able to manage the outputs that you need from your body.
Just staying active every day. Never stop.
Never stop.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Heidi, over many decades of climbing, I found like I've been climbing less. I mean, I've been climbing like 2 decades. Sometimes I hit these mental blocks where, going out and doing the same things
Mhm.
is sometimes a little bit less fun. And I don't even do it as a profession like you do. And my advice to friends who are new at climbing, which I think does not get heated at all, but is like, hey, enjoy these early years. You might only be climbing 510s, but every month you're going up a grade.
Right.
And you get to a certain point and it's very hard to progress, right? So I'm curious, have you hit mental blocks where you have not wanted to go out and climb? And if you've had that, like what techniques can you advise that have helped you move past?
I don't think I've ever not wanted to go climb. I'm a fool. I love it. Even guiding, I love being outside and being on the rock. So I think maybe it's instead of focusing so much on the grades, to focus more on where you're at and just how lucky you are to even be there, which I think a lot of people don't do because it's all about the grades. So, and yeah, I like it when I'm climbing really well, and it does feel nice when you're flowing in your body. But even if you're not, it still is so amazing that we even get to do this. I think we're so lucky because so many people they don't have this opportunity. So for me, it's a little bit different, I guess. And yeah, I've wanted to push myself, and like I said, I do like it when I can perform well, but yeah, you also got to come back to like, wow, this is just incredible. And if you really let go of all that, I think you climb a lot better. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Any other things, Heidi, that you think you have done consciously or otherwise to keep you in the game where perhaps some of your contemporaries may have stopped or slowed down?
Well, what have I done to stay in it? That's interesting. Probably actually the path that I took, like going and starting to offer it to as my, like I offer climbing to people as my profession now, and taking it instead of just for myself, I'm now giving it to people. I think that's kept me really psyched. Yeah. So then when I do get days where it's just maybe I'm not working and I'm just with friends, I get even extra psyched because I'm like, wow, I get to do this and not be in charge of people for a second. Even though I love my job, it just sometimes it's nice to just relax a little bit with it. But even on my days off, I go climbing. So I don't know. I have a problem. I'm like addicted to it. Maybe.
Yeah.
I just love being out there.
I can see how that can be powerful because one day you're out there guiding or teaching and you are creating these aha moments and these sparks and this joy in people, right? And maybe, I don't know, maybe subconsciously that also fuels you for the day you're going outside, because one is you didn't go to play because you were helping, but then also there, because I find that when I go out with newbie climbers, which I seem to do more now than I used to a few years ago, because let's say a few years ago when I was climbing a lot more, I would only go out with partners who were at my level or stronger. And I feel like those exchanges were not always positive. But now when I go out with newbie climbers, oh my God, they're so positive and they're so psyched.
They're so psyched.
As they are outside and experiencing all these things. And not just experiencing the wall. But then, they're literally and figuratively stopping at the anchors to turn around and soak in the view, which I think we forget to. And it's been great. Yeah, I love going out with newer climbers for that reason these days.
Yeah. I think guiding definitely helps me keep that for sure. Because they're super psyched, and people get so bummed about all the new climbers. Okay, so if I'm in Boulder, because I spend some time in Boulder, Colorado, and it's busy there, and the older climbers are like, oh man, there's too many climbers. And honestly, I like running into the newer people that are in town that are out hogging up the crags or whatever, because they're so psyched. They are, right?
Yeah.
And then these grumpy people that have been doing it forever, you're like, you guys, it's actually, look at it. This is rad. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't mind more people as long as they have a positive attitude, and beginner climbers. I love taking out people that are just psyched. So I get it with you. I'm same. Yeah.
Heidi, let's talk a little bit about nutrition. We just spoke about your breakfast. What role has nutrition played in your ability to, again, keep the psych up, keep the performance up?
Yeah. Well, I've always eaten pretty healthy. I think it's important. But yeah, lately I've been putting a lot more protein into my diet. I don't eat as many grains. This all started happening when I started having injuries, because grains can be inflammatory. And so I started taking certain things out that are inflammatory and adding more things that are helpful. And so I think it's definitely helped play a part in it for sure. And I take certain vitamins too that help. Mm-hmm.
I actually recently saw a nutritionist for that same reason. I'm like, am I having inflammation issues I need to manage? And actually, she told me that unless one has an intolerance to gluten or one is overweight, one doesn't need to worry about inflammation. But maybe it has helped you. So what do I know? Or what does she know? Maybe just a couple of final questions before we end this chat, Heidi. I'm curious, in the last, let's say, few years, has there been a habit or a behavior that has been most impactful to you?
I guess being disciplined on waking up and doing my PT. Just treating that like a job instead of doing it every once in a while. Because for a long time, it would just be like, well, you do the thing until you feel better. And now it's just like, no, you should just keep doing the thing. So I think that has been pretty impactful on my body. Yeah.
Certainly. And making it part of one's lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think in my case, yes, it seems like I'll be doing shoulder rehab and maybe even hip rehab for the rest of my life.
Yeah, right. Uh-oh. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good to stick with that stuff.
Great. How about maybe let's say one simple thing that you do every day, besides PT, of course, that seems to bring outsized benefits?
Right. Well, if I am meditating every day, that definitely helps a lot. And I do try and do that every day. But it isn't always an always thing. But I have tried to put that back into my life, and it makes a huge difference.
Is that a type of practice you picked up in your travels in the mystical Orient? Or do you open up like an app on your phone? And
well, I mean, I started it probably because of the yoga background. But But actually now I do have an app on my phone where I have a little timer on there, and I can just turn that on and it's happening, which is pretty nice. There's all kinds of apps for it. You can put on different meditation talks too. It's great. Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also have had a meditation practice over the last year that's been really good. But what I love about it mostly is that it's app free.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the past, I started a meditation practice over COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I used, I forget, it was Sam Harris's app.
Mm-hmm.
But what I hated is like I'm on my devices the whole time, and then I have to again put my device on to be able to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
But now I have something where I don't have to use an app. I learned something a year ago, which is great.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Maybe just final question. What has been the best use of $100 or a similar amount that has been the most rewarding in recent memory?
Probably taking my mom out to lunch recently.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you guys go for lunch?
We went to this place in Humboldt County that's right on the water. That's super beautiful. Yeah, and it was super fun. Yeah, I love hanging out with my mom. I love hanging out with my mom. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. When I said last question, I lied. I have one or two more questions actually.
Okay.
So one question I had, which I wanted to ask you earlier, is any goals with your climbing for the next few years, decade that you are ambitious about?
I mean, basically to keep my body healthy and get back to a place where I can go climb harder routes up in the Alpine that I want to do and actually climb them in a good style.
That's important. Style is so important. Any particular route that really gets you excited?
I mean, there's a lot of routes that get me excited, but yeah, I mean, there aren't any right now that I'm projecting per se because I've just been working a ton. But yeah, I'm not going to say right now because I just want to go climb.
Okay.
Because I just want to go climb.
Fine. Maybe when you actually go and do that, maybe we'll have you back on the show.
Okay.
And then, just final question. What is maybe the greatest gift, Heidi, that you believe you have received? And then perhaps the greatest gift you may have given somebody else?
Oh my gosh. Do you ask everybody this?
Not everybody, but sometimes when I'm inspired.
Okay. Wow. That is a good question. The greatest gift I've given people. I mean, probably just my smile. People seem to enjoy that a lot. And I don't know. That's interesting. What's the greatest gift I've received? Man, probably just like the love from my friends and family. I keep going back to that, but it's just kind of what I am into. Yeah. So.
Good answers, because I was let's say, one of the many benefactors of your smile. Like I said, your energy that I felt from that video that I saw of you many years ago was amazing. And I didn't think I would actually have you on a podcast and ask you about it. So maybe that's been a gift back to me also. That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup, Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.